This is Kid.
And this is Drag.
And today we're going to talk about
all the stuff you think about.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And today we're here to talk to you a little bit about the Nintendo. And I don't mean the brand new one. We're going to be talking a lot about some of the classic games, those included in the Nintendo Classic that you can get now, and some of the original ones that were out that didn't make the top 30 list to not get on the new Nintendo Classic. So, Kid, tell me what's exciting you about this episode today.
So it pretty much stems from, growing up, I had an Atari, but my love and passion for video games really evolved with the NES. So looking through the list at everything they've got on here, it really brought back a lot of awesome memories and stupid amount of hours spent playing these dadgum games. So we're definitely going to dive into the 30 games on the NES Classic, kind of give a little bit of feedback on our experiences and where we raged out and which ones we like the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was doing the cast with the Board Gamer last night, and it was funny enough. I asked him, how did he get started into board gaming? And his first response was, hey, it started off with playing video games and getting down, sitting down with your friends, playing on the same console and whatnot. And board gaming became an extension of that because now with the online games, there's less of that community or local play going on. It's all done online. So pretty interesting. I think a lot of love was found for gaming and video gaming. It all started for me in a total agreement with the NES. So mad props, and we'll get started right off. So, Kid, what's the top title on this classic list, or one that didn't make the list that really stands out to you?
For the list, I would have to say Punch Out. Looking at
Punch
this,
Out.
man, God, I spent so many hours on that. I really don't think I ever beat Tyson.
I don't.
But, yeah, that was
I
one
think
of
you had
them
to use a cheat code.
Man, would just get to him every time and lose. And that's the thing you don't think about with today's game. You just start over and keep going till you beat it. Back then, you only had so many chances. So
yeah, they had to evolve the up, down, left, right, BA, just so you could complete the games.
But yeah, that was great, and it also I think that was one of the games I loved the most. And also I realized that back then they made the controllers so well that no matter how hard you twisted trying to break that thing, it would go right back to where it was.
Yeah, oh, for sure, because it was definitely put to the test. I know they made all the jokes about the Wii and the damages done then. They just forgot about that original NES and how much punishment that was created on people.
I mean, there's countless blowing on the cartridges and then the old sticking it in there and beating it on the side.
Yep, absolutely. We won't talk about what term that brought to the world today, but I guess you can figure that out. So looking for me, I think, going through this list, there's a lot of memories on a lot of games, but the one that probably sunk the most hours for sure was Metroid for me.
Oh,
man. That was one that I think I started off maybe playing Mega Man, which we'll come back to maybe, but then I got into Metroid and I thought, oh man, look at these graphics. They're unreal. They're space driven. It was right up my alley. So I would have to say, just out of the number one, that's the first thing on my classic that I picked up and played and regretted it instantly because that sucked up hours all over again.
Yeah, and for me with Metroid, unfortunately I was late to the game on that one. I think I played it right when the SNES come out, and I just played it, but the SNES was out, so I got to get on that. So I didn't get to beat the game.
Did you get into Mega Man too much, or was that late?
Mega Man never really did get into it. I know it's always been around and big hype for everybody, but it was just one I didn't have because I only had a few games growing up.
Yeah, no, that was back in the day when, your video game collection literally took up half of your room's table space. And definitely every place that didn't have dust in it got a priority at that time.
But I will say, looking at this list, the Super Mario Brothers, I have sunk a stupid amount of time in. And on top of that, even like everybody played it. My mom played it. My sister played it. My dad was always meh about games, but that was a game that always hooked everybody.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm right there with you on Super Mario Brothers. That I have memories very vivid about playing that for the first time. That was the first game I got. It was a 2-game combo on the same cartridge. It had Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers. I
Hmm.
got the little laser gun, but the hours into Super Mario is ridiculous.
Big time.
So, how long before you figured out how to get to the level -99 in that game?
Oh, about 15 years later.
Well, I think that goes back to some of the points we made in previous cast where we're talking about how at the time to learn something about gaming, you had to subscribe to a magazine or go to the
Mhm.
store and buy a magazine to figure out tips and tricks. And I know that was my first experience. I'm reading through this whatever gaming magazine it was, and it said, you can get to level -99. What? How does this work? And then started realizing and figuring out that skill to do that backward skate to go into the never ending water world. That was, that's those Easter eggs that are just amazing from the games at that time.
Yeah, and that's another thing that kids don't know about these days. Back then I'm sure it's illegal and probably is still illegal, but when you're, I don't know, 10 years old and you don't have the money to buy the whole magazine, so
Mhm.
they had copiers and you could put a dime in a machine and I would just gradually walk up there and get the page I needed, scan that bad boy off and go on with my way.
Yeah, I mean, that was it was a big deal because that was the supplement and how you really got along in gaming because you didn't have a huge community. I mean, at that time when I got my Nintendo, I was the only kid on the block who had one for the
Mhm.
first few months, and then it was months later somebody else got one and started playing. And you're talking of a group of 2 or 3 friends where how you got all your information, and that's pretty damn limited compared to what you get now.
Oh yeah, and then it's like I said, magazines was definitely it back then. And then if you had the demo disc, you were the man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I thought like that Ready Player One movie captured one really important thing to me that at that time in the era of gaming, as Nintendo was coming out, Easter eggs were kind of a big deal. That was the programmers poking a little fun at the game, realizing it's just a game. Where I think a lot of games now are so focused on getting to the end and beating this level or beating each other or whatnot, but it wasn't for the sake of playing. And I
Right.
don't know how many how many hours just figuring out how to do the backward skate to get into level -99 that I put in that had nothing to do with the game at all. 0.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue until, like I said, at least 15, 20 years later. I just get, getting on top of the, I guess you call it the map or whatever, running across the level was about as
Mhm.
advanced as it got for me.
Right. Well, that's
But
because you didn't copy that one page
I
that told you
didn't.
about -99.
But I will say though, another game on this list that was countless hours. You know, everybody in the family was excited by it, especially jumping in, and then if you hitting it just right and getting the boost and everything. Oh, that game was great.
Oh, yeah, I knew that was gonna be on your top list because whenever Trials came out, which is,
Hmm.
much more advanced, the very first Trials, not into the HD and all that stuff, you were calling saying, "Hey, man, you gotta go check this out. It's like Excitebike, but modern. It's cool,
Modern
2D."
modern day Excitebike. Now I
Yeah,
still love Trials. I get on there every now and then, but that game pisses me off just as much as Excitebike does.
mhm. Yep, that's definitely one you just gotta practice over and over and over. You're learning very, very small techniques that I mean, you don't even get to those or think about those techniques until you've got hundreds of hours soaked into it.
And
But
another good game they've got on this list is Tecmo Bowl. Oh my God.
man, and I've already said it, it is immediately whoever gets John Elway in that game. It didn't matter anything else at that time, but you could cannon the ball all the way down the football field. And man, I can tell you, like sitting side by side with another person, I don't think there was ever as many hours soaked with a friend than that game right there. There's one on this list that comes in a close second, but that one right there, man, that was one of the best two-player, just sit down, soak up hours, play into the wee hours of the morning games that I've ever played.
Yeah, the zigzagging back and forth, and if your buddy misses you, you just get roasted.
Absolutely. So the other game for me on here that is still a favorite. As soon as I picked up my NES Classic, I immediately went to this game and it was Contra.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that to me is number 2 as far as sitting down, playing with somebody, and really getting into the game. When I talk about the collaborative gaming, like playing with other people, Super Mario was great. You had some assistive play, and it was cool, but you could still play it pretty well by yourself. It was a little bit of competitiveness on who was getting further and so on and so forth. But Contra, man, that was one that really evolved gaming in my mind, that you had 2 people going after the same goal, and you're sitting there just hyping each other up. Man, you got this, don't do this. And to play it before the cheat codes with the lives, that was an intense gaming session.
Yeah, and then it really sucked when your friend got hit by the slow moving bullet.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep, every
I
time.
spent lots of hours in that game as well, and then getting the 3-shot burst gun was amazing.
Oh, yeah. So you were the 3-shot burst guy. I was the
I
spread
was,
guy, the
yeah,
shotgun or spreader. That was the one I went for every time.
yeah. Let's see, Castlevania was another really good one, and the
Mhm.
thing that made me mad about that game was trying to go up the dadgum stairs all the time.
Dude,
You'd run past and have to run back just to hit diagonal up just right to get up them stupid things.
yeah, that game was a legend in its own right, really created an entire series. I think I stopped playing around Castlevania 4. Um, have you played any of the later editions?
No, I haven't at all.
Yeah, that was a pretty awesome game. And what about for you? How does Ninja Gaiden rank on your list?
Oh man, lots of hours. That was also another one of those games that falls into my twist the controller and try to break it, especially when you're almost out of lives and you get to so far in the game, you know it's getting close to the end and you just lose and got to start all over. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. What was the one thing that stood out to you when you were playing through that the first time that was like, oh, this game is so revolutionary because?
It was just chunking the little ninja stars.
Mhm.
Just the whole time chunking stars.
Yep.
I mean, the graphics were pretty good back then too.
Mhm.
Uh, the cinematics in that game I remember was awesome as well.
Mhm. Yeah, that was the introduction of the cutscene.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
had the Super Mario's had like the little cutscenes over to the princess, oh, come save me, blah blah blah. But Ninja Gaiden really kind of took what has evolved into kind of a standard in today's game of having a really storyline cutscene, that the graphics were intensified, and just like they are today, they're all taking tips from that era.
Oh yeah. It's like you said, it's definitely paved the way along with Contra. I mean, as far as shooters and what's to be expected out of a game.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me the most is playing Ninja Gaiden the first time when I jumped and stuck on a wall and I could jump again. I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, what is this? This is a whole new mechanic, a whole new everything. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with Ghosts and Goblins as well, though.
Mhm.
That game was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
That
and
was,
that's one that didn't make the list. So, oh no, it did. It did.
yeah,
It is
it's
on
on
there.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
So I guess we'll look at this. Donkey Kong was good. Legend of Zelda. I mean, you just doesn't get any better than that. It's like we was talking in our other podcast where one of the new Legends of Zelda coming out. I can't remember what it's called now, but I said, man, that's got the old school look and feel to it, and I really
Mhm.
like the way that looks. So that's going to probably get me on the next console that is coming out on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Zelda was again kind of an evolution, and this is where you've really got to pay homage to what Nintendo did for the gaming world and industry, and just the whole roadmap to where everything went. Zelda was that first real saga. You kind of felt a little bit more, maybe the origination of the open world theme that
Right.
didn't really exist or wasn't popularized until then, and showed, hey, this is possible, that you have a map that you can go this way or this way and still get to an end result. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, Legend of Zelda is great. I mean, that's kind of my key ones on the 30 that come on the
Mhm.
classic.
Mhm.
We can go ahead and dive right into the games that we thought should have been on there that I think would have. Well, I guess some that's made an impact playing game or this whole time is Battletoads.
Mhm.
I'm surprised it wasn't on there.
Yeah, I am too, because that's even got some popularity today on the upscaled version. I don't know
And
what was
they're
being done up
remaking
there.
it too.
Hmm. Yeah, that one definitely has a lot of favorites, a lot of people that really like that game, and it kind of paved the way again for a lot of games, especially mobile games have followed along with the Battletoad methodology and mechanics. But I agree with you. That was one that stood out that said, "Hey, why isn't this here?"
Did you ever play California Games?
What was that?
It was basically a street. It was like, oh my god, surfboarding, skateboarding,
Hmm.
just a bunch of random stuff that you would do in California. That was a really good game. What
Hmm.
little bit I can remember, I remember I had it, played the crap out of it, but that
Right.
was one. And then let's see, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge. Have you even heard of that one?
That sounds very familiar.
So when I was a kid, I went to Sam's and they had the bargain bin. It was just a game that looked cool, and it was you kind of fight and do like unicycling across buildings, and it was a really good game. And I'm surprised it didn't pick up a lot more steam from back then.
Mhm.
Paperboy, I'm
Oh
surprised
yeah,
that wasn't on there.
that one really shocked me as well, because that was a huge arcade game that you saw frequently when you went into the local gas station and arcade games became a thing, or any arcade game room or whatnot always had Paperboy there.
Yeah, Paperboy was awesome. Rambo, The Simpsons, and Smash TV. I mean, come on.
Yeah, for real. And so going back on a couple other ones that stood out to me were Burger Time. I can't believe that didn't come out. That they didn't figure out how to get that one out there. That was very popular. It wasn't necessarily one of my personal favorites, but a lot of people I saw that eventually started getting into the NES consoles picked that game up. The others are Bo Jackson Baseball
Oh
was a big
yeah,
sports game, and then just the Bases Loaded series, that the first series, I know they did Tecmo Bowl in the sports arena, but those two games, I mean, oh my gosh, that was just all the time. I think everybody played those. That wasn't just a once in a while. That was everybody I knew played that sometime.
yeah. My cousins were big into it, and every time I went over there, that's what we did was
Mhm.
that.
Yep, absolutely. So there's a lot of games. There's a lot more than that. What about other ones that stood out to you?
I would say the only game that my dad would actually play was called the Black Bass.
Uh
It was a
huh.
fishing game, and there was a swamp area, man. You could cast way out there, and there was always a big catfish that you would either break your line on and trying
Hmm.
to reel it in, and probably 9 times out of 10, that's what would happen. But when you got it, it was a competition who got the biggest fish. So it was an awesome game.
Yeah. The one, man, I just feel like they should have integrated this, because it made one whole section of Nintendo, and I think it gave a different dimension, and that was Duck Hunt. You know,
Oh
that,
yeah,
like, to me, I don't know. I think that was given out as far as I can remember. You had where you bought a console, you got Duck Hunt, or you bought the console and you got Super Mario Brothers. It was one of the two. And then it came out where you had Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers on the same cartridge.
oh
That
yeah,
was
it was awesome.
I can't even understand how that didn't get integrated. I understand it's another piece and it might have been an expense thing, but you talk about the legacy and legend of what Nintendo brought to the world. Man, that was a huge one. That was Nintendo at first. It was either Duck Hunt or Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the edition Nintendo we got that had the 2 pack there, if you
Hmm.
will. So
Yeah, I think that it quickly went that way when you got the one game and then you immediately had to go back to the other. It was definitely very, very early, because I can remember getting that for Christmas, and man, I was only 8 years old. So we're talking a hot minute ago, and it was already released that way.
yeah. Is there any other ones that pop out for you?
Man, I think there's a few that stand out. Um, but I think some of it is memories of the movies and stuff like that. You think about like Hudson Hawk, that was a fun little movie. But when I look at things like Indiana Jones was released, and I know they were playing off some of the titles and whatnot, but all the way back to 1988, Indiana Jones had a game out on there. And I think that was it was a co-marketing thing, right? That you have one of the biggest movies of the time was released, and I think that also again paved the way for these collaborations where you're seeing like Resident Evil today has a movie,
Yes.
has a game, right? But that started way back at that time, and obviously the graphics were nowhere near as good, but it still gave you that experience that you could bring home the excitement and whatnot of a movie that's out there. So those to me for a different reason. Maybe I didn't play those quite as much because that was a little bit later in my Nintendo days, but it's still pretty cool that that was on there. The
Yeah.
other one I'll tell you that stands out, just I put it right up there with Duck Hunt as one of the biggest misses, and that was, Joust.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Like
surprised that wasn't on there either, man. Just getting that running speed and then pegging somebody.
uh-huh. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
you just think about it at that time, like, what was really the, flavor, and when you went around and looked in popularity, of course, your popularity window is really, really small compared to today 'cause we're sample sizing the whole world, and back then, it was
right.
your neighborhood and your friends and your cousins and their friends of the cousins. But at that time, everybody I knew had Joust and played it a lot.
Yeah, that's that's kind of another thing. Back then I thought I was awesome. I thought I was the man at video games because
Mhm.
everybody around me, I could just smoke them like it wasn't nothing. And
Uh-huh.
then the World Wide Webs come out,
Yeah.
and I realized I need to just step down, son, step down.
You need to back away, back
Yeah,
away. Yeah,
nothing.
yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pool is so deep there, you're gonna find people that are gonna spend more hours and probably have a little bit quicker fingers than you do.
So
So any mhm.
what would be the rage quit game for you out of the NES?
Rage Quit, man, it's one I played probably the most, but it's Ninja Gaiden without question.
Hey,
That one, just for the same reason that you talked about, where you would go so far and you had limited lives and get down to the very, very last, and those were episodic gaming sessions that usually when you sat down, you had your few dry runs. You played through it a little bit, got a little bit further, and then you said, okay, now it's serious. I'm gonna go get it this time, and you really, really push, and you're there for a long time. And then when you fail, that's
that's
like,
it.
yeah, it is like I'm done video gaming for the rest of my life. That's what your initial thought is, right?
Yeah, that pretty much sums up mine, and it is called Yo Noid. I
Yo,
don't know if
Noid.
you've ever played that, but yes, it
Uh-uh.
is the Domino's character, and you had to jump around on your little pogo stick through a map, and it was same thing. You had so many lives, and you'd get to the end and had to start all over. But I played the crap out of that game and never beat it because of
Mhm.
that. But that's
Yeah.
my rage quit: break a controller, throw the console out the window, and never play again.
Yeah, and there is one other one that kind of makes both of those lists. One that absolutely blows me away that it's not on the console. It blows me away that um, we have any Nintendo product without this game title. But then it also made me more frustrated than most any other game, and it was in arcades everywhere. I think half of everybody I've ever talked to played this game on their NES, but man, it pissed me off so many times, and it's a simple game, and that's Q*bert.
Hubert, yeah,
It
you are not kidding there at all.
Man, it wasn't like it was difficult or complex or any tricks or anything like that. It was just frustrating.
I didn't have a lot of experience in it, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That game was frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was another one just that was just out there like Paperboy. If you walk to your gas station and they're like, "Oh, we gotta have a video game console in here," and they pop up an arcade thing, It was either Paperboy or Cubert for a long time, so it
Oh yeah,
really made some noise there.
yeah. That's all the greatness I can think of right offhand that the
Hmm.
NES has done for me, and it's definitely paved the way for me and my family our whole life. So I'm definitely excited to see Nintendo still around and look forward to seeing what they've got in the future. E3 was a pretty big eye opener for me to see
Uh-huh.
what's coming out soon. So I might have to pick a Nintendo back up.
Hmm. Well, so I will tell you that I'm a little disappointed that you didn't come across this one because there's no way that you don't know and you haven't sunk a lot of hours into this game.
Uh-oh.
And you'll know it as soon as I say it. You're gonna go, crap, you're right. And it is it did not make the list either. But man, I put a lot of hours into this one, and that is Spy Hunter.
Oh man, you're not kidding. Spy Hunter and Clash at Demon Head. But
Yeah.
yeah, Spy Hunter, yeah, I forgot all about that game. That was pretty great.
Yeah, it was. That was you get to drive
I've
a
got
car. I mean,
I've got the music going in my head right now.
uh-huh. And think about that, like when you get to drive a car, that was awesome. You know, we're at the time I'm playing this, I'm 10 years away from a dream of driving a car, and here I get to go simulate one. Oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah, and for the people that are listening, there was a game out for Nintendo. I remember renting it that you had 3D glasses and it was a jumping simulator 3D game that was awesome, and I cannot remember the name of it. So if you're listening and know what I'm talking about, drop a comment. I want to know what it was because I do want to play that game just to reminisce on that.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I'll have to do a little bit of that Google searching and see if I can't find it because that sounds pretty
I
cool.
mean,
I remember that coming out.
we're talking
Um,
3D on NES, man. That didn't
yeah,
happen back then.
you're saying that, and it made me think about one of the other like it's those memories coming back every time I start talking about Nintendo and dive into it a little bit, and I go, oh yeah, I remember this. But do you remember? And did you ever have or played with the Nintendo glove?
No, my cousin had it, and
Uh huh.
I never did get to go over and try that thing out. I remember what it looks like, but never did get to taste the flavor of it.
Yeah, it was, it had the controller built on the arm pad or whatnot, and you had actions you could take with your fingers. They were trying to release, very, very early virtual reality. But again, man, that is just unbelievable that that was produced at that time. So that was a memory that just hit me like a sledgehammer when you started talking about those glasses and whatnot and having the VR experience or whatnot. I remember that glove, and they had the like the twister action pad that you
Yeah.
could hook up. So, man, you think about that. Like, I got to give mad props to Nintendo that back at that time, how fast and creative video gaming and the idea of what could happen and what they were doing at that time is really unbelievable. You
Well,
got
not
to
only
give
that,
them props.
they had the little robot things that you could do. I never got to experience it, but I remember they had the robots.
Uh huh.
I don't even know what they're called, but I mean they were doing
Right.
all kinds of innovation back then.
Yeah, and it was so fast and furious because all of this stuff that we're talking about today all came out within a few years, right? It wasn't the next console and the next console. This was on the very original NES, and they were just trying out the things that they're starting to just now get perfected, 20 years later, or well, longer than that, more like 30 years later, we're starting to come see some of that ideas and the creativity that came out way back then come to fruition with some of the technologies we have. But man, it is awesome. I love the thought of Nintendo every time I dig in and start really going back in my memory banks about these things. It is just like enlivening. And I expect that you as listeners out there are going to have those same feelings as you start hearing these games. But absolutely, as Kid talked about, if there's something, a game that was especially reminiscent to you or that really got a great childhood memory going on, let us know. Give us a shout, drop a comment, hit us up on social, anywhere. Go check out our website at kidindrag.chat. Look for us on Facebook. Just Google that and you will find us all over the place. Come find us on your socials and drop a hint. What do you want to hear about? Was there something that we didn't talk about today you'd love to hear about? and let us know.
And that's our episode today, folks. Signing out for now. This is Drag.
And this is Ken. We'll catch you next time.